On today's show, with the Capitals sitting on top of the NHL in points, there's a lot of questions. How are they getting it done? And Alex Ovechkin has a rare opportunity in Edmonton.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the secret sauce that the Capitals have this year. Now, you take a look at the team, the Capitals, sitting on top of the NHL in points. How are they getting it done? It is a frequent question that I get is, how are the Capitals, this team that no one had any real high hopes for, how are they getting it done? I'll talk about that and the road trip that lies ahead. A little bit later, I'll talk about Alex Ovechkin in his rare opportunity in Edmonton to actually try on some of Wayne Gretzky's equipment. And then in the final segment, I'll talk about the next wave of talent for the Capitals. But just to get it going here, how are the Capitals getting it done? That is a question that I do get asked quite often, is that you take a look at the moves that were made in the summer. Most people perceive them to be meh. I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Mangiapane, compared to the big moves that you saw in Nashville, for example, that on paper, it would appear that Nashville should be a markedly better team just based on the big acquisitions. But sometimes it is just knowing your team very well. And former GM Brian McClellan knew and knows this team very well, as does Chris Patrick, and made wise decisions. There were opportunities that happened, that popped up just based on kind of coincidence, I guess you could say, or just players getting older, that kind of thing. If you want to take a look at Nick Backstrom with the hip resurfacing procedure, TJ Oshie with the back problems, both on LTIR, that freed up some money. Evgeny Kuznetsov, as we know, went out to the Hurricanes and now plays over in the KHL. His NHL contract was terminated. That freed up some capital, some money for the Caps to go out and make some acquisitions. But it's not just that. That seems like an easy answer. What the Capitals had a lot of was draft capital, and they were able to use some of that draft capital to go out and acquire these players. And as it turns out, it has worked out swimmingly for the Capitals thus far. So let's do that. Let's dive into the success, talking about the Capitals and how they are getting it done and why they are where they're at. So the Capitals, as they sit atop the NHL standings, are gearing up for an exciting road trip up north and, well, out west. The team has been on fire lately. If you haven't paid attention, if you haven't, maybe you should watch some more of the games, racking up points in an impressive 10 consecutive games and riding a 4-game winning streak. Quite impressive for this team. 10 consecutive games and riding a 4-game winning streak. There's a lot to like about this team, and there has been questions and there has been changes and alterations made to get the Capitals where they're at right now. And a lot of that credit goes to Spencer Carberry, who is never willing to just go game after game with the same lineup and hoping and crossing his fingers, hoping for a different result. He will make changes game to game if he doesn't get the results that he's looking for, and also having great players on the team to live up to your expectations and the plans you have them, the way you have them laid out. And One player in particular has really grown by leaps and bounds. The future captain of the Capitals, in my assessment, Tom Wilson, who emphasized the resilience of this squad. He talked about no matter the situation on the ice, the team has found a way to emerge victorious. And a lot different than previous seasons where if the Capitals got behind in a game, that was it. It was just too much for them to bear. And a majority of the time, let's say last season, the Capitals lost those games. It's a much different team. It's a much different roster if you think about it, that they have the resolve, the tenacity, the pushback to get back in these games. So whether they've held on to comfortable leads or battled through tightly contested matchups, the Caps have shown they can respond under pressure. That is one of the biggest differences and one of the reasons why the Capitals are having success this year versus previous years. But like I talked about, if it was the same lineup as last year with Oshie and Kuznetsov limping around there, and we didn't make any big acquisitions in net, do I think the Capitals would be in the position that they're at right now? No, I really don't. And I don't think that's too crazy of a take to have there. But you take a look at the retooling that took place over the summer. The additions of Pierre-Luc Dubois, Jacob Chychrun, and Logan Thompson have been absolute game changers for this team. Pierre-Luc Dubois, playing primarily as that second-line center, has really made Connor McMichael and Tom Wilson's game that much better. A guy that came to this team and a lot of people laughed. They scoffed. What are the Capitals doing with Pierre-Luc Dubois? You understand at the time he was signed to an 8-year deal. Are you guys crazy? Well, as it turns out, it was an amazing, very smart decision by former GM BMAC. Jacob Chychrun, as we know, is key. He is a rear guard. He is a huge blue liner with an offensive flair, a guy that the Capitals need to lock up in the long term, has been huge. The Capitals were looking for that on the blue line, is a solid defender, and Logan Thompson has been nothing short of stellar this season. Again, Darcy Kemper out to the Kings. It was just Charlie Lindgren and, some talent in the AHL, either Charlie Lindgren or Clay Stevenson. Brian McClellan said, not so fast. I have a better plan. How about Logan Thompson? I'm going to get him on the cheap. I'm going to have 2 really great netminders for under $2 million. What do you guys think of that? I would say at the time, that sounds great, but I think you're crazy. As it turns out, Brian McClellan got it done, and Logan Thompson has been an absolute game changer for this team. You take a look at some of the raw numbers. Dubois is leading the charge with 28 points, while Chychrun isn't far behind with 25. And let's give a shout out to Logan Thompson. His performance, like I said, has been stellar. 984 save percentage in 2 shutouts in his last 3 games, even earning him the NHL's first star of the week. So I would like to say it was all homegrown talent, that it was players that worked through the system. Some of it has been Connor McMichael, for example, but a lot of it was players that were brought in from outside of the organization. And some of them, these risky moves that former GM BMAC referred to last summer, haven't been that risky at all. They were at the time, but they have paid off splendidly. But team culture and chemistry, that is something that you're not going to see on the back of a hockey card, but it has been huge. And that goes in large part to Spencer Carberry, a very positive guy. He lays out expectations, and he's not afraid of telling you what you need to work on if you need to do it. And I think he has a rapport, being that he is a younger coach in the league, that it doesn't seem like this old, grumpy old guy telling me what to do out there. And he just knows the game really well. I don't want to simplify Spencer Carberry's game. He is a genius on the bench. If you just take a look at what he has done with the lines, again, I've said this before, the perfect coach for this team, for sure. But talking about chemistry and what do the players think? Chychrun spoke about the integration of these new players that has invigorated the locker room, creating a strong sense of confidence in teamwork. And ultimately why I think that, Jacob Chikrin's happy playing with the Capitals. I think if they can come to terms with the deal, absolutely, I think he will be here in the long term. It's clear that playing for one another has become a core part of the team's identity. I think that when you see the players in the locker room, they actually like each other. A lot different than Vancouver, if you know what I mean. But our head coach, Spencer Carberry, has taken a group that barely scraped by last season and turned it into a cohesive unit that can adapt on the fly. Again, you take a look at Spencer Carberry, it all goes back to him. The players have to execute, but Spencer Carberry has been amazing, and it's contributions from all corners. It's not just Alex Ovechkin. It's not just the Ovi show, but it is, part to do with him as well. You take a look at players that have grown by leaps and bounds. You take a look at Alexei Protas and veteran leaders, including Ovi, who at 39 still possesses a scoring threat. This is the same guy that to start last season when he got off to the slow start that everyone's like, see, we knew he would. This was too good to be true, and he's washed. He's too old. He is edging closer and closer to the great one, Wayne Gretzky. Now, let's take a look ahead. High expectations. As we look ahead, it's evident that expectations in the Caps locker room is sky high. You take a look at it, underpinned by a revitalized culture that positions them as serious contenders. They are, as I record this, the most points in all of the NHL. I listened to Frank Saravalli today, and, his co-host on there asked him if he thinks that the Capitals could go all the way. And he thinks that it's definitely possible. Or no, it was the President's Trophy is what it was. And what he was talking about in that comment there is he thought the Golden Knights, but the Golden Knights, they haven't been playing. So there are some early favorites that maybe this Capitals team could be a front runner for one of the best. I know it's not too surprising of a thing to say, but in a lot of ways it is, considering what the expectations were for this team. Now, of course, not every team is perfect. The Capitals, they are no exception here either. The Caps are aware of areas that need improvement, particularly in their 5-on-5 offensive play. I've talked about this a lot, and something that's crept in here a little bit as of late is overpassing, most notably in the Penguins game. Wilson reminded us all, while it's still early in the season, maintaining confidence and continuing to perform well is crucial as we navigate through the moments of this year, around the halfway point of the season. Still a lot of hockey, but this is where it gets exciting. Like the first half, kind of finding your ways. You take a look at the stats. You take a look at where the Capitals are at in the NHL standings, and it's kind of up and down and up and down. It's starting to flatten out a little bit, and you are starting to see the premier teams rise to the top. The Capitals, as I record this, are the best in the NHL in points. Not a lot to criticize there. I'm going to be honest with you. The Capitals are riding high, and what they hope for going forward as they head out on this Canadian primarily trip. I know there's going to be a stop with the Kraken as well, but they are going to be going on a westernly trip here, and is that they can keep this momentum going in the long term. And, it's going to be some tough talent. The Edmonton Oilers, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare minus Connor McDavid, as he is suspended for 3 games. So that's my hope here, is that the Capitals can continue to keep riding this positive momentum. I have no reason to doubt this team, as it has been lights out all season. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Alex Ovechkin in his rare opportunity in Edmonton. They actually cracked open the case and let him try on some of Gretzky's equipment. I'll talk about all of that and much more straight ahead. Keep it right here. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. And listen, we know that the Washington fans, you are riding high. The Commanders took down the Lions. Who saw that coming? Who saw it? Everyone favored the Lions. But if you want to get in on this action, imagine if you had a little bit of money on that Commanders game, or any of the other NFL games, you could really clean up. So just visit fanduel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So talking about Ovi and his chase of Gretzky, and what I'm going to say is a really cool moment for the Great Eight as the Capitals are taking on the Edmonton Oilers in a late game. Not loving that part of it. I love when they play these Canadian teams that they don't play quite as often, but a rare opportunity for the Great Eight as they actually cracked open the cases and he tried on some of Gretzky's equipment. Pretty crazy and a really great opportunity for Alex Ovechkin. The Edmonton Oilers showcased a special tribute to Ovi. They opened up the glass cases at the Oilers Hall of Fame and Rogers Place, allowing Ovi to try on Gretzky's gloves and hold his iconic stick and jersey. And I know that seems like a bigger deal to me, and I'm guessing it's a big deal to Ovi, but you know, he's met these kind of guys. He's run in these circles, but what a sight that must have been. And I saw the pictures posted on the Capitals social media account, and he looked rather happy. And I know that he owns one of Gretzky's other sticks, and he is a guy that collects equipment, a lot of sticks, those kind of things. So it had to be a cool moment for the Great Eight, and a tip of the hat to the Edmonton Oilers organization for being so hospitable to Alex Ovechkin. But we take a look for Ovechkin's respect for Gretzky. It is a mutual admiration society, if you will, as I know that Gretzky also admires Alex Ovechkin. And it's said that they often reach out to each other, or Gretzky reaches out to Alex Ovechkin if saying he's going through a bit of a dip and kind of keeps him going, saying, hey, you can do it. I went through these struggles as well. But Ovechkin has always held Gretzky in high regard as he chases what at the time seemed unbreakable record. It was, just a few years ago that it seemed like a goal of his that, we didn't know if he was going to catch. And it was a long, long ways away, but it's right around the corner, Capitals fans. Go ahead and pinch yourself, and not too hard, that it is going to happen sooner than we all think. And at 39 years old, he even possesses a game-used stick from Gretzky, a gift he received back in 2018 after finally winning a Stanley Cup. Now, if you are not, a longtime NHL fan, or maybe you heard the name Gretzky, but you're not familiar with the player, it's worth remembering Gretzky's remarkable history with the Oilers from 79 to 88, where he claimed 4 Stanley Cups and contributed 583 of his total 894. Now, after his time in Edmonton, he became a legend with the Kings, later playing for the Blues and Rangers before hanging up the skates in 99. And it's a touchy subject for me. When I talk about Gretzky, I don't ever want to diminish what he's done, but it was a different time. It wasn't the butterfly style netminders. It was kind of just that flailing style when the puck was shot, and it was wood sticks. It was these kind of things that. So I think that Ovechkin has the advantage with the more modern sticks. But I also think Gretzky had the advantages. It was subpar netminding back then. So just a really great thing, and a lot of things to factor in. A lot of, staunch old people say, regardless of what Ovechkin does, there's no one greater than the great one. And of course, that's your opinion. But talking about his chase of history, now fast forward to the present, and Ovechkin is just 21 goals away from surpassing that record. If he continues at this pace, he's on track to hit the milestone by April. We want him to stay healthy, knock on wood here, and that he can make history as the first player to score 900 goals in the NHL. That's what we want. We don't want him to catch and pass him by 1 or 2 goals. We really want to take it out there. So it's going to be that much more difficult for the next guy to come along. And maybe they'll never be able to catch him because Alex Ovechkin is a generational talent. And I feel lucky that I'm a fan and I get to cover this team as a truly great moment in NHL history. Now, taking a look at the current season and record smashing, as of now, he's hit the net 21 times in just 30 games this season. Ovi has already made his mark as the second player ever to achieve 20 consecutive 20-goal seasons. So it's all the accomplishments. If it was just the Gretzky thing, that would be pretty cool, but it's much more than that. And recently he set records for the most goaltenders scored on in NHL history. That's what I'm talking about. So for people to diminish Alex Ovechkin for some sort of reason, I don't get it. I know that a lot of things have crept in, that a lot of them this season and the last couple seasons have been empty netters. You go ahead and go out there and do it. You lace up the skates, you grab the stick, you try to even get close to that or any other NHLer. That is why he is in elite company with Wayne Gretzky. Now, what an incredible journey we're witnessing in real time. I talk about that oftentimes on the show. It's not some old archival footage. We will see it this season. Can you believe that? As we continue to follow Ovechkin's chase for Gretzky's record, it's clear the Caps have a true legend leading the way. And the thing of it is he's a guy that I think doesn't want to focus on it too much. I think it was something that kind of tied his head in knots to start last season, that it is going to happen sooner than we think. And what a great moment for him. And what makes it even more sweet is the fact that we know that he has 1 year left on his contract. So if he can get it done this season, then next season he can just really rack them up, just really put the pedal to the metal and take this thing to the next level. And it will be with some great company. Ryan Leonard ostensibly will be on this team, perhaps Andrew Crystal, these kind of players that, it is going to be the farewell tour for Ovechkin next season. I suppose stranger things could happen and he could sign an extension, but he has talked about the fact that it will most likely be his last season next season in the NHL. He could always ride off out into the sunset playing 1 season over in Russia, but a truly great time to be a Capitals fan, to be an Ovi fan, and a great moment for the great 8 who admires Wayne Gretzky and the opportunity that was afforded to him by even trying on some of Gretzky's equipment in Edmonton. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the next wave of talent for the Capitals. Some of it is a bit further out, some of it's prospects. Some of the players I'm going to talk about are in Hershey. I'll discuss all of that and much more straight ahead. Keep it locked. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy as one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience. They've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required, and it's easy, affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day, the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So in this next segment here, we're going to talk about the next wave of talent for the Capitals. In the previous segment, I talked about that it will be the last season that Alex Ovechkin is under contract. And a lot of the players, well, they're getting older. John Carlson, for example, that it is going to be a changing of the guard. And you take a look at the change that already took place last season. It wasn't by design. It was based on, well, Spencer Carberry had things sketched out, right? That it was going to be Kuzi and it was going to be Backstrom. And Backstrom, well, he faded away towards the beginning of last season. And Kuzi was put on waivers. That this team was thrown a lot of curveballs that, former GM Brian McClellan wasn't anticipating, and head coach Spencer Carberry surely wasn't anticipating. That it has changed a lot. And some of that change is also going to take place within the next year or two. And who are those big players, the next wave of players for the Capitals? We're diving into an exciting success the Capitals are having this season, not just at the NHL, the AHL, but also the prospect pipeline, which is brimming with future stars. And one of those players, of course, is Andrew Crystal, one of the guys that we thought was going to make the team this season. It was one of the final. He was one of the final cuts, and ultimately the right decision was made as his game has just blown up playing in the WHL. And let's talk about him first off. Andrew Crystal. This Andrew Crystal is lighting it up in the WHL. After being traded from to the Spokane Chiefs, he has hit the ground running, racking up 16 points in just 5 games with the team. Of course, we remember before he played for Kelowna, the Kelowna Rockets. So far, get this, his stats are stunning. He's tallied an impressive 76 points in 32 games, putting him on track for a 157-point season. That's right. He could be on the verge of breaking records in the modern era of the WHL. And this guy, right around the corner. Imagine how much better the Capitals will be with Leonard and Crystal, these kind of players, that it is going to be absolutely, this team could be just untouchable and just next level for years to come. But you take a look at it, Crystal's efforts could not only set him up for personal accolades, but also lead the Chiefs to a championship, as they're currently one of the top teams in the league. And another guy that comes to mind here is Ilya Protas, Alexei Protas's brother, who is also blowing up, except he's doing it at the OHL. The younger brother of Alexei, and if he's anything like his brother, that's a good thing, as Alexei's season and his career has really taken it to the next level. Ilya has been making waves in his rookie season with the Windsor Spitfires of the OHL, where he has already accumulated 30 goals and 40 assists, bringing his total to 70 points in 39 games. Another player a bit further out, but another game changer for this team. And the guy I think that we're all looking forward to the most is Ryan Leonard. And again, he could join the team later this season or to start next season. And there's already some crazy talk out there, as we know that the Vancouver Canucks are desperate to offload a couple players. And some of these bloggers are talking about the possibility of trading Ryan Leonard for one of these guys. And when it wasn't just him, it was Mangiapane and a bunch of guys. It was such a crazy article that I read earlier. I won't mention who wrote it, but I think that Ryan Leonard is an untouchable for sure. I think that he is going to take the Capitals to the next level. We saw what he has done on the international stage, what he's done at Boston College. And I am just so excited to see what he brings to the Capitals. He's scored in back-to-back games and has netted goals in 3 of his last 4 matchups with 15 goals and 22 points in 21 games. He's another top prospect. I'm going to go ahead and say the top prospect, as he is expected to sign his entry-level contract with the Caps this spring, or maybe next season, a move that could have an immediate impact on the NHL roster. Again, where do I see him fitting in? I guess it depends on what kind of guy we see, but I think the sky's the limit. Maybe a more smaller role until we see what he's made of, but ultimately going to be a key contributor, a key part of the next wave of great Capitals players. And the next player I'm going to talk about is Ivan Miroshnichenko, a guy that should be very familiar to Capitals fans. The thing of it is that when he is on the Capitals, sometimes he really pops off the page, and sometimes he doesn't. He seems to really excel in the AHL, and I think it's just fine-tuning his game a bit. I think that, it's still a bit of a work in progress. We see what he's done in the American League. And you take a look at it, Miroshnichenko is total to 8 goals for this season in the AHL. 8 goals, which means he's got 17 points in just 20 games. He's now only 1 goal away from matching his total from last season. Quite the comeback after his stint with the Caps. Since being reassigned to Hershey, Miro has really stepped up his game. He had recorded 4 points in 18 games, but he clearly needed more ice time. And I think that was part of it. Is that when he played with the Capitals, he played a lot on the fourth line, which does get a decent amount of playing time, but I think he is thriving in that environment. And speaking of ice time, since returning to Hershey, Miro has been paired with another guy that's at some point hopefully going to take his game to the next level, and that is Hendrix Lapierre. He is a guy that is putting the work in. He is a guy that's hitting the gym hard. There was a lot of plans for Hendrix to be a Capital for the season, but it didn't really work out that way. Will it ever be that time? Hendrix Lapierre, for me, is a bit more of a question mark, but he is getting more playing time with Miro, so it is the perfect environment for Miro to grow his game, and Hendrix Lapierre, for that matter, as you take a look at what that team has put together, back-to-back Calder Cup wins, that it is going to be an excellent environment under the tutelage of Todd Nelson as well. I think that if a player is going to improve, that is the perfect environment to really grow your game. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.